Our next panel is titled, This is Not Hollywood, Real Innovation in Montana Media Manufacturing and Film Production. I'd like to welcome to the stage John Suh, Founding Director of New Horizons Studio, Mark Sharp, Executive Director of the Montana State University Innovation Campus, and our moderator, Lynn Woods Field, Founder and CEO of Media Training Center, and our moderator, Candace Carr Strauss, Vice President for the Chamber.
So thanks so much for joining us here this afternoon for our panel. This is Not Hollywood, Real Innovation in Montana Media Manufacturing and Film Production. I'd love to allow my panelists to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about why they're here. So John, want to start with you?
Hi everybody, my name is John Suh. I lead a team called New Horizons Studio. It's part of the Hyundai Motor Group. As you may have heard, last May we announced the opening of an R&D office in Bozeman. Our goal and our vision is to create products, vehicles that for people who want or need to travel over very challenging or difficult terrain. The way we're doing that is by adding robotics to cars. You can think of it as having a car in which each wheel has a leg, if you were to see it that way. That provides the vehicle with a tremendous amount of additional mobility over a traditional vehicle, and that's why we call them ultimate mobility vehicles, or UMVs for short.
Thank you. Mark?
My name is Mark Sharp. I'm the Executive Director of the Montana State University Innovation Campus. I've had the job for 2 years, and I'm probably one of the newer residents of Montana. I was a resident of Florida for a number of years, in the Navy, 20. I served as a county commissioner in Florida, helped set up some innovation districts there, but I'm here because of my daughter. She was going to go to Wheaton College. We were in Golden, Colorado, and I said, why don't we take a drive up to Bozeman, Montana, where you're getting this mail from Montana State University. And by the end of the weekend, she'd made the decision, and we as a family had certainly made the decision, we wanted to be here. And part of it was because they helped her, they talked about finding a job for her. And when she graduated, she's 23, she started into a great job. So I love the state. We decided to move here. I found a great job, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Linwood?
Hi everybody, I'm Linwood Fields. I grew up in the Flathead Valley, and also I came from Libby, Montana. And I'm a filmmaker. I've been a filmmaker for over 12 years, but my real passion is to make sure that Montanans are benefiting as this film industry comes in. It is something that I'm driven by every day, that as Montana grows, that we benefit. And I see the film industry as a real opportunity for that through rapid training and for crew base. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about it.
So let's begin our talk addressing the title, This is Not Hollywood. So what specifically are we trying to say with that? And anyone and everyone?
So when I think about this, the analogy or historical example will be actually the automotive industry, which, you know, as you may know, in the U.S., it was really centered around the Great Lakes region. So Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, parts of New York, and even parts of like southern Ontario. And a lot of it driven by the fact that you had iron ore deposits in like Wisconsin and northern Michigan that provide the raw material to make cars. But over the last, maybe 20, 25 years, that center to some degree has shifted from the Great Lakes region. It's still there, it's not gone, but it's shrunk, and it's really shifted to the southeast. So states like Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, and even parts of Florida have a significant number of manufacturing, and there's different reasons why that happens. But when I think about, in the context of this panel, like this is not Hollywood, I think there are forces and capabilities and technologies which are enabling the production of film and TV to move from its historical center, let's say Hollywood, Southern California, into other parts of the U.S. So certainly places like Austin and Atlanta and New York, of course, but even cities like Albuquerque, which for me was surprising how Albuquerque has become a kind of film and TV production place, right? And so what I see happening is like that because of again, different technologies and different sort of the dispersion, if you will, of what historical context into other parts of the country. And I think Montana, there is an opportunity to do that. So I think it's really this idea that which was historically in one part of the country doesn't mean it has to stay there. Still, it doesn't mean we replace it necessarily, but that the production of things can happen in other parts of the country, including film and TV.
Yeah, to kind of take your point further, what we're seeing is a revolution in filmmaking. When I was working in Florida, there was a gentleman who had a production studio, and he was doing regular film production and taking his team and traveling all over the country shooting. Well, when COVID came, he found that he couldn't go on location like he used to be able to. And so he knew he was going to have to iterate. And what he talked about, his name is Tim Moore, he's the founder of a company called View Studio. But what he said was, I've got to figure out a way to bring the production in-house, bring it here. So he went to Lucas Studios, he saw what they were doing when they did The Mandalorian, he said, I'm going to build that. And this young man put together a company. He built, at the time, the third largest LED volume studio in Tampa. He's now built 4 studios. One's in Las Vegas, one's in Nashville, one's in Orlando. The largest one's in Orlando, you got Tampa, and 16 training studios, which we want to bring to Montana State University. I'm sure University of Montana, Montech, and others are going to want to do the same thing. So what you're doing is you're dispersing the skill set necessary to make video and film. You don't have to go to Hollywood. You don't have to go to Atlanta. You're going to be able to come here and have the same technology, cutting-edge technology, and because the way these studios network with each other, you're going to have the skill set you need. If you don't have it homegrown, you'll have it from another location. But folks that live in Montana who want to get into this industry will not have to leave. My oldest, 26, he was here for a while. He said, I want to go into production. Was going to go to LA, wound up in Nashville. Now he's telling me, Dad, when can I come back to Bozeman?
I've heard the joke, it's Hollywood's everywhere but Hollywood now. So I think that when we talk about this panel, what we're really talking about is who's telling Montana stories. And I think that it's super important that we train Montanans to tell our stories because I think we're very talented. I think we're really hard workers. And I think we have a lot of good stories to tell. If you're ever around a Montana table, you'll hear some great stuff. So that's a passion of mine, is that we train them, because the truth is, film is everywhere today, and it's a legitimate industry with high-paying jobs, and we should benefit in Montana with those.
Thank you. So can we go a little deeper into what those technologies are that are changing virtual production? John,
Yeah, so I'm not a practitioner. I mean, I don't mean not an industry, but just seeing it that I've been realized like this potential is. It's been mentioned. This one is the LED panels, these micro LEDs, right? That you can make. They're not really big panels, but you stitch them together, like I don't know, hundreds or even thousands of these. You create this volume, as they call it, or space in which you can create very high resolution images that when you film, you can. It's basically it looks real, right? And then you have on top of that what they call so-called game engine technology, which has really gone way beyond game engines, but this ability to render a 3D image extremely fast in real time, so fast that when, as I understand, as you position a camera, the image that the camera, the perspective that you're looking at the screen will change instantaneously to whatever perspective is required, and so you have the right parallax effects and everything. So when an actor is moving, everything is moving simultaneously, and then on top of that, you have in the last, I think 3 or 4 months, this really has come really fast. This whole thing called generative AI. And so I think what generative AI allows you to do is perhaps maybe not make the film itself, but I think helps you to do the set or the maybe even scripting to some degree, storyboarding, what have you. So it can really, again, allow creatives to get their ideas out of their head into something faster. And so I think there's that and all that coming together. And it's not just the individual pieces, of course. I think it's really how you architect all together into the right way. It's a lot more than I'm probably describing it, but those are some of the technologies that are happening. And they're happening, most of these technologies are happening at the scale of the so-called Moore's Law, which of course maybe is different, but the idea that you can accelerate, every 18 to 24 months, you're getting these kind of exponential or gains in the speed or the efficacy of these technologies really happening. So it just gets better and better and better, right?
Okay, great. Perfect. Alrighty. So how can virtual sets and LED volumes be used for more than film and television production, and how is New Horizons Studio looking at this technology for its business?
Yes, I'll start with, that was mentioned here before, like Linwood just said, there's a lot, I think, great stories in and around Montana. And I want to mention that one of the reasons why we chose Bozeman is because a lot of the applications and the markets that we're thinking about are in the areas, off-road, off-highway, off-trail mobility, things that you might find in construction, mining, natural resource development, whether it's forestry, ag, or rangeland management, public safety in areas of like emergency response, disaster management, disaster response, and then even like a rural goods delivery. And we want to be relatively close to our future customers. So even though we're very much in the R&D phase, it's important for us to, like others have mentioned, being close to the customer. So we have a good sense of understanding need, what would be of value for them, et cetera. And one specific area that I'm really excited about is emergency response, public safety, and search and rescue. And as you well know, Montana is a hugely popular state for tourism. There's a lot of people coming here, and occasionally they get into trouble, right? Meaning that they need services by search and rescue. And there are literally hundreds of times each year in just Gallatin County alone where you have different types of incidents at different types to help us. So I think there's a rich set of stories out there that I believe that those stories I think could be very interesting in and of themselves. I think that search and rescue represents a really challenging use case for our vehicle. So thinking about how we might provide value to a search and rescue unit in helping with an emergency response, and then making a story, right? And I think what I want to try to do is create a series of a short film, 10, 15, 20 minutes or so, about a very near future scenario in which the search and rescue operation in which a UMV is there helping a crew save a life, and whatnot. And the UMV wouldn't be the front and center part, it would just be it would be like a supporting character, right? Just like R2-D2 and C-3PO are supporting characters in Star Wars, and that kind of thing. So I think, what I see is a kind of rich opportunity to kind of share the stories that are happening here and to work with the people that we might want to serve and to help with our product.
What you're hearing, and first off, I want to say to the Chamber, thank you for putting this event together. I've had a chance in elective office to work with a number of chambers across the country, and I was going to say there's no chamber that I've been around that works harder, that's more aggressive, in helping to land great companies here, speaking up for the state of Montana, and willing to really roll up their sleeves and do hard work. I know there's a number of them. I deal with Matt. You've heard Matt Olson's name many times. He's like a double shot of espresso. The guy's full of energy. But I'm telling you, we talk almost every day, and I'm like, what can I do to help you? And he's asking me, what can he do to help us? And I think the partnership that you see between the university, I'm sure the University of Montana is the same, but Montana State University, the chambers, the Department of Commerce, the governor's office and such, everyone working together to make companies want to come to Montana and then be able to use this technology. And you heard how Hyundai is talking about, New Horizons Studios is talking about how they can use this tech. There's a great article that I read on a train in February of 2019. Get the Wired magazine, Kevin Kelly, a cover story. It says, "This is Mirror World." And Kevin Kelly began to talk about what some have described as the metaverse, and I know that's kind of gone through its rough times with what's happening with Facebook, but Kevin Kelly described how this technology will be used. And he talked about these different platforms, the web being a platform, social media being a platform, and now this new Mirror World platform where you use the tech that is being used in this video making, and every company in the world is going to have the skills to be able to use it and to deploy it. Just as in the early 90s, people talked about you have to have an internet strategy, and you had some folks going, well, I don't know, what will we use the internet for? Maybe for gaming. Well, the internet's used for a lot more. This technology that's emerging is going to use what LED volume studios are all about. They're going to use it, but they're going to use it for their industry. So we've had in Tampa, where I've, again, have had a lot of experience with their studio, folks from the James Haley VA Hospital, third largest VA hospital in the nation, say, we want to use this, and they've gone and they've looked at it. You have folks from Advent Health. You have the military. The military will definitely be using this technology. There are applications of this technology as we get into this great powers conflict that are going to make it important for us to really understand how it's used and to use it. You know, Putin said not long ago, whoever controls AI is going to control the world. Well, we don't want Putin controlling the world. We want to make sure that we have the ability to use this technology, whether it's AI, machine learning, and this new technology that's emerging in the video production field.
Thank you. So, Mark, you mentioned skills, and we've heard all day today throughout the panels about workforce development, training, education, upskilling, apprenticeships. So, Linwood, can you please talk about what types of new jobs will be created by this virtual production? And also, what are some current programs today that maybe people aren't aware of that are happening to train Montanans to be in this business?
Yeah, well, I think we're hearing about really exciting technology that's coming, but I do want to say that film is already here, and it's doing really, really well in our state. In 2019, we passed the film incentive, and we have seen over $200 million of direct spend in our local economy, with 840 full-time jobs created, making over 50K. So the excitement here is that it's here, and it's doing really well. And we can grow this, especially we need a higher cap, because Yellowstone in 1923 will take all the cap that we currently have already, and there's still over 190 productions that need to film. But I think that's when I saw the incentive pass, what I noticed right away is production wanted to hire locally because they're incentivized to hire Montanans at 25%, 30% for students, by the way. And but they didn't know how to find people. So in Montana, producers didn't know where to find crew, and crew did not know how to find producers. And so I started Media Training Center, and then luckily got connected, as you heard earlier, with Accelerate Montana, who I think is a very visionary organization and is seeing the need for rapid training. Film fits that perfectly. So we've already created a production assistant course. It's an entry-level course that gets you film set ready within 15 hours. And that's really basic stuff, like how do you use a walkie-talkie? It sounds little, but when you're on a set and you don't know how to do that, you look like you don't know what you're doing. But we will have, by the end of March, over 150 graduates. We'll have had over 100 people placed into film. And I will tell you, I've been to tons of high schools across the state. The youth are excited about this. This is a very exciting industry. And even with all this wonderful new technology, you still need people to tell those stories. You still need the people to put that together. And there's hundreds of jobs, and they could pay 50 to 120K. And those of us who grew up here and those of us who live here now, we're competing against a lot of remote workers, and I really find film to be a solution for that. It's good paying jobs, it's exciting jobs. And right before this, we had ag on here. I get calls all the time from people in agriculture who are like, can you come and film on our community and bring in some of that money? And so I think modern technology is gonna bring us to the next level, but film's here and it's doing well, and it can even do better.
Thank you. So, Mark, we were talking in the hallway a little bit about some of the doubts that perhaps maybe out there, fears that people have with the advent of this technology in this industry. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I certainly think that, with all new technology, there's an upside and there can be a downside. We've seen this with social media, things like TikTok, and the concern that legitimate concerns that folks have. So when you start hearing things like the metaverse, and you start hearing about how this technology might be used, well, there's going to be good applications and bad. John discussed some of the good applications when you look at emergency response, healthcare, those areas where I think we're going to see a net plus. I'm really excited because, and you talked about, having skilled workers in the film industry. What we're seeing is that young people want to get into this industry. And our Vice President of Research, Dr. Allison Harmon, has made it a priority that we get a training studio on our campus. So we're working hard on making sure that's a reality, because we know that the students are going to be looking at how do you use this technology. John talked about, the game engine. Game engine is one's the software. It comes to Epic Games. They use the Unreal Engine. That's the software that runs this. And it's complicated, and quite frankly, we don't have the workforce nationally to be able to place them into the studios. And so the Epic Games has got a large grant. We're going after that grant, and that grant can be used to build these training studios. And I think training studios should be under tribal colleges, and certainly, again, we're going to place one in Montana State so we can train young people to use this technology and then engage in something that they love, which is whether it's art, film production, and the beauty is you don't have to leave the state. Again, when you get into film production, people think oftentimes, whether it's Hollywood, Atlanta made a big push, well, we can't do it here. Well, that's not true. And with the new studios that we're building, we'll be one of the first in the nation with these types of studios. People are going to actually be coming here to use this technology, not leaving the state to go someplace else and use the technology.
Well, we'd also like to announce that in May, to celebrate National Travel and Tourism Week, the Montana Chamber will be hosting its inaugural Convergence event. And this is bringing together what we're calling FORT, 3 industry verticals: film, outdoor recreation, and tourism, all that use the power of place to tell story and drive economic development across our state in rural communities, as you've mentioned. So we invite you all to check out our website at montanachamber.com to learn more about that. That will be May 10th through 12th in Paradise Valley. Really trying to shine a light over there post the 500-year historic flooding event last year down there that shut down the park for 8 days. We will conclude that event with a trip into Yellowstone with Superintendent Shulley to talk about that miraculous 4-month road redevelopment. So again, please look to join us. Part of that will be a junket over to the Yellowstone Film Ranch, where we'll continue this conversation. And I just want to leave one last comment about Montana being competitive and how we can become the champion for this industry here. The film tax credit, they're 41, we're 41st in the state, I believe, with respect to that. So it's highly competitive environment. Linwood, perhaps maybe you want to speak to that a little bit more. You referenced it, about the current cap and what we need to do.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's an important conversation about what we're talking about here. I grew up in the 90s. There was tons of film here, and then it all went away. And the reason it went away is Canada figured out to incentivize people. And so they took the jobs, they took the money, and they took the stories. And people always say, why are Montana stories told other places? That's a big reason. In 2019, the legislation worked really hard and got a great film incentive through. It was at $10 million, and we saw 5 times the amount of film come through. It's been highly successful. We are now currently working on one that we really consider a job growth bill for Montanans, and that's coming through the House now. And as we raise that, what we're doing is holding back things like 20% for SAG Ultra budget for $3 million. A lot of those are indie films, and they hire locally. And I just think this is something that Montanans can really benefit from. And so I'm here in support of the tax credit. I think we need to raise the cap. I think we need to make this Montana benefit. And I'm really excited you guys are here and doing the work you're doing, because I think all of us can benefit. And we talked about entrepreneurs. Local businesses that have felt the impact are all across the state, from the High Line to Browning to Butte to the Ravalli County. And you talked about tribal communities. We're lucky to have about 25% to 50% Indigenous graduates. They are incredible at filmmaking, incredible. So, and veterans are incredible. So I welcome these industries and these people into our state. I welcome this kind of industry for Montana.
Thank you. Any final comment before we close?
We're just here to support you.
Wonderful.
We're going to make sure you've got the trained workers, whether it's a college grad or a young person right out of high school. That's the beauty of this industry. You do not have to have a 4-year degree. You just have to be hungry and want to work and have that in your heart, this production. And so what we're finding is that there are a large number of jobs in this industry where you can go in without having the 4-year degree. Certainly if you've got the 4-year degree, it helps, and we're encouraging that as well. But we're going to make sure you've got the workforce.
Thank you.
There's-
Oh, sorry, John.
No, there's been some comments about like, what makes the entrepreneurial activity here so amazing. And I think it's my feeling is this, that people want to stay, right? And then when you want to stay is what's driving this entrepreneurial activity. And for me, as an employer, I really like that, because then if you want to stay, that means you want to make it work, right? And so when I think the intangible is that as I bring in more people, hire people from Montana, then it's not just the desire to work on something interesting. I think there'll be a desire to make it want to really be successful, to make what we're doing work, and then, because then think if they make it work, then they'll make it work for their friends or their family, et cetera, right? And I think that's something that's hard to quantify, right? And so I think that's, as coming in, makes me really excited about being here. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you all very much. I don't know, are we doing Q&A with the panel? Bueller? No. Okay. Well, if anyone has a question that they're dying to ask, we can take one or two real quick.
Yes.
From the corner, can we explain the cap a bit more?
In terms of how it works? Yeah, so, well, I think something that's really important to talk about that I think is a misunderstanding is when we wrote this cap, we wrote it so that the Treasury never wrote a check out. The way it works is you actually have to spend money in the state of Montana, then you get a full audit. They go through every single thing they spend. They can only get money back if they hired local crew, if they worked with vendors. There's a joke that says, you don't get a dime until you give us $1. And so basically how it works is, for instance, Yellowstone spent $85 million in Ravalli County. After they went through everything, found out what they spent, they got $16 million back. And this is an industry standard. The reason they do this is, well, it's the first question everybody asks is, do they have a tax incentive? And finally in Montana, we can say yes. And so one of the things we're talking about today is, can we raise that enough that we get more industry in than just a few of these productions? And can we make it even more Montana built by incentivizing crew, giving more percentage back to lower income or lower SAG rates. And then the way that you actually do it is you sell it to a state income buyer or somebody who pays state income tax. So if anybody in here pays state income tax, feel free to talk to me because it's a really good deal for you. And you save 85% is the basement of what you can sell it for. So a production maybe makes $200,000, they can sell it to Montana state income tax. But at no point does the Treasury ever write a check. And that was really important to us.
So what's the hesitation of raising?
I don't know.
The question was, what's the hesitation?
I don't know why there is a hesitation. I mean, I think that sometimes there's a feeling of resistance for tax credits, just in general. But this one, I feel like it's not named correctly. It's more like a promotion to come to our state and spend some money, and we'll give you a little bit back if you do that. It's basically like, if we didn't have this, we would never have $85 million or $200 million, which is what happened. So I think, I don't know if anybody else wants to answer what the hesitation is, but for me, it's kind of a win-win for the state of Montana. I do think, this is me personally, that having a sustainable growth makes sense, so maybe not an unlimited right now, but having enough that we can keep going. And I am very adamant about this year because we're only at 12 million, and again, we already have over 32 million in production spend. So we do need to get it up to keep the industry going.
We'll end with the win-win for Montana from Lynn Wood. Thank you. We please appreciate the panel with applause.